getting a little bit more practical here, 3 tips. Um, these are really the things I share with anyone that asks me, like, hey, what should I do when I'm awake at night? And I think it really applies to when we have had this experience that we know we have not so much struggle falling asleep, but when we wake up and then we struggle falling back asleep, what to do. Uh, here I say don't check the time, which is not a hard rule or anything like that. Sometimes people hear this and say like, oh, I must not check the time. That's the way I'm going to conquer my insomnia. Well, then it becomes this effort again. But this is just an invitation to not check the time. And the reason I mention this is that what happens so often is that someone falls asleep and they wake up, realize they're awake, become alarmed, and check the time. Which is natural because when we're in any type of struggle, we want to have some sense of control, and checking the time, knowing what time it is so we can calculate and ponder can seem like, a reasonable thing to do. But often what happens is it just makes us even more alarmed. We're like almost never wake up, check the time and go like, oh, that was nice, and just fall back asleep. It's almost always like check the time and be like, oh my gosh, I've only slept this little, or oh my gosh, I only have this little opportunity to sleep. Oh my gosh, it's the same time I wake up yesterday. And so leaving tracking, leaving monitoring can be really, really helpful. So a practical thing to do is that, when we find ourselves waking up at night, we're a little bit frazzled, but we don't check the time, just takes away kind of like something tangible for the brain to work with. The brain, like, it loves numbers because it likes to have some sense of control. And when we take away numbers, it leaves things fuzzy and doesn't even know what time it is. It can really lead to more and more peace. So that's really nice. The second one I say is accept reality, which sounds, like, what does that mean? Well, oftentimes we don't accept the reality. We start waking up and we're like, I don't want to wake up, but then, oh no, I'm fully awake, but we're still not accepting that. We're like, now I have to just stay here and hope I fall back asleep, or I have to do something, just shut my eyes. We're kind of fighting reality. We're trying to force ourselves to not be awake anymore, which is tricky, at least a struggle. So accepting reality, meaning like, okay, this has happened. I'm awake at this moment, and I'm not going to try to force myself to sleep. And that leads to more peace in itself. So accepting reality is really nice. And it sort of automatically segues nicely into C, which is befriending wakefulness. And I want to highlight again that befriending wakefulness doesn't mean that we have to like get out of bed and put on a really exciting video or do something super engaging. Not at all. But befriending wakefulness really just means that we can look at the fact that we're awake not as like a problem, an enemy, something we have to fight with rather an invitation to see like, okay, I'm awake now, and how can I befriend this? I mean, how can I accept this? How can I make this easy for me? What is the easiest way I could experience wakefulness right now? What is the most kind of low energy? What's the path of least resistance for me now? Is it just resting? It's just laying down with my eyes closed and just resting. Maybe that's a nice way to befriend wakefulness. Or maybe listening to a podcast, or maybe having a snack, or maybe watching a show, whatever feels like this will transform wakefulness from like an antagonist to something that's acceptable to me. That is really, really helpful, because that teaches the brain that there is nothing to fear. Like, being awake is a harmless state of mind that we don't have to struggle with or fight. That leads to resolution of any insomnia, including the variation we call sleep maintenance insomnia.